This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the Rodrigo Fernandez of website builders. Maybe the most challenging thing about running this channel, behind only trying to convince people that Villy the Roo is good and the dawning realisation that Jim Jones Sex Place is never going to retire, so I'm going to start coming up with these names and continuing this bit until I drop down dead, is with every match analysis video I upload, having to come up with a brand new synonym for beat to put in the title. More than 150 of these in the can, and the English language starts to run dry, and yet watching the Springboks against the All Blacks on Saturday, this problem shifted. Coming up with a new word was no longer the problem. Now, it was a question of which one do I select. On Saturday, South Africa dismantled the All Blacks. They shut them down, they smashed, demolished, sabotaged, broke, blasted, blew away, trounced, trampled, routed, vanquished, pasted, pounded, pulverised, clobbered, hammered, caned, creamed, quelled and crushed them. This was a game utterly one-sided on everything but the scoreboard for most of it, as South Africa took New Zealand to the cleaners, turned them inside out, then dropped them in a well. And it could yet get even worse next week. So, how did the Springboks do that? And are there, any positives for the All Blacks at all? Spoiler, yeah, he's called Beauden Barrett. Ian Foster, who I'm increasingly convinced is only a rugby coach because he looks like one, said after the game that this was probably the All Blacks' best performance of the year. Which, it wasn't, but also, it wasn't. There's an awful lot wrong about the All Blacks, but it's pretty hard to be right when you're being punched over and over again on the Adam's apple by Eben Etzebeth, because conversely, this was probably the Springboks' best performance of the year. Arguably, you could say, maybe their finest since the last World Cup, as the things that make them matter all went into overdrive. Without Springbok kryptonite Sam Wainwright around, their scrum was able to march all night long, and their defence remains impossibly impressive as always. It just adapts to every threat. This is a great example. Arendse contests well in the air, but the ball comes loose and Beauden Barrett's reactions are superb. He takes a step backwards so he can line up the ball properly, and then takes it forwards instead of just pouncing on it, and allows two of his teammates to get into range to clear out. It's brilliant. Because things are so fractious, and crucially around the 22, meaning the back three have to cover the kick, the Bok defence is slightly misaligned. We can't see them here, but Sia Khaleesi is defending in the 12 channel, and are generally quite unorganised. Geordie Barrett notices this and slots in at 10, drawing Du Toit perfectly. However, Khaleesi has assessed the situation even better, and Kane just hasn't. He spins around expecting a player to be in his boot, this space behind him, but, and this is a theme throughout the entire game, the moment Beauden Barrett is off his feet, the All Black shape becomes so bad that he just doesn't have anyone around him anymore, and remarkably, David de Villiers is running as though he's picking a line off a distributor who isn't there. It's properly extraordinary stuff, and the All Black captain is so slow to realise what his opposite man has assessed instantly. Khaleesi does brilliantly coming under the angle, meaning Kane can't slip the ball to Surveyor, smashing him right into the path of Pieter-Steph du Toit. Knowing he's in trouble, this is a turnover if he doesn't do something, Kane just lobs it and Diolande can wrap him up. Even when the defence is disorganised, it's lethal, it's knocking teams backwards. However, Geordie here makes another great read. The Springboks use their 9 as a sniper, shooting up to shut down attacks. And this is still kind of a new role to Jaden Hendrickse, and he tends to commit far harder than de Klerk, who gives himself enough wiggle room to drift if needs be. And Barrett catches him out here. Toiyaho offloads and still scrambling defence leaves Etzebeth drifting across. Beauden can step in and make some ground, and whilst it's lovely skills work, it's not ever really threatening, and means the Boks had the time to set it properly, all whilst the All Blacks are adapting. Their shape is solid here, but it's Geordie Barrett in the boot, not a natural fly half, and that of course is Pieter-Steph du Toit's second favourite food to George Ford. Watch how wide he starts. He's eyeing up this gap between Kane and Scott Barrett, knowing he's going to no matter what have a clear line to the brother. And the whole not being a natural 10 thing means Geordie needs an extra split second to turn and pass, so du Toit just eats him, gobbles him up, one bite, yum yum. And again Havili is left to scramble, the All Blacks under incredible pressure. Even this, one of the All Blacks' best attacks of the game, beginning with a beautiful move utilising the running threat of Caleb Clark as a decoy to put Havili through a hole, is immediately slowed down by Damian Diolande, once again allowing the Bok defence to get 90% into shape. The Pimpy is still retreating to his wing, and whilst Beauden spots this, look how slow Ioane is giving this pass, turning his entire body inside instead of just lifting it for his 10, and it slows the attack by a full half second, meaning Willemse is up in Barrett's face and he has no choice but to take it in. There's a great carry by Scott Barrett, and then, because the only competent players in black share a surname, Beauden Barrett almost takes the gap himself, but this generates quick enough ball and the Bok defence can't be aggressive as usual, so knowing they can't smash them backwards this phase, Naikani wraps him up to put the ball into Malcolm Marx's mitts. The All Blacks manage to clear him out, seemingly for the only time in the game, but it slowed New Zealand ball enough to attack their attack again. A brilliant bit of sniping by Hendrickse causes a panic pass by Taoval, and Havili drops it, but even if he didn't, the next two players are both being smashed by Arendse. 10 phases, the All Blacks' longest and most cohesive attack of the game, and they make a net gain of 4 metres and lose the ball. In fact, the set piece where New Zealand made the most ground all game was this. Luliaga pinches it in the end, a loose pass by Hendrickson, his Arrows has to scramble it to touch. 20-minute net gain. Genuinely, this is the most ground the All Blacks made off a single set piece all game. Their attack was so easy to take care of. Ian Foster didn't exactly need his fancy MacBook to tell him things weren't working. And so instead he could use that MacBook as a chance to head to Squarespace. Knowing he'll be unemployed pretty soon, Foster was able to set up a clean, lovely, professional-looking website easily inside the 80 minutes the game gave him, listing his CV, qualifications, various achievements, the whole lot, the perfect tool for any headhunters recruiting rugby coaches for the Japanese leagues or window cleaners in the Auckland area. Your guess what comes next from is as good as mine, but thanks to Squarespace, he's got a beautiful website that'll make him prepared for whatever happens and actively help it do so. And you too can be just as prepared for whatever your future happens to hold by heading to the link in the description and using the offer code SquidRugby to save some NZ dollars or any other currency. You can save it in any currency you like. You can even save it in New Zealand dollars, then convert it over. The really alarming thing for the All Blacks is that they had ideas to interest them, and precisely one of them worked. This unsub Will Jordan decided to catch out how hard the Boks rely on Malcolm Monks at the tail of the line-out, wanting him to work across and help whoever's in the 10 channel. Still sees Jordan, ankle tap by Visa, and then when they reload there's no clear plan. The Boks are so calm about this. Andre Pollard drops into the backfield and just tells the others to defend it. Rico Ioane runs this line expecting the ball, but the Boks can pressure the players inside, meaning Geordie Barrett has to kind of rush the floated pass, and Ioane tries to turn his run into a blocking line at the last second, but it's easy for Aronson to drift past him and stop Clark, allowing Lekanuam to take out the trash, finish off the move, winning the ball back. They're so organised, efficient, and just unbothered by anything. Here, the All Blacks run a variation of move that should be familiar to all South Africans. Probably shaken by seeing Gareth Anderson beat the Springboks and knowing no other key will do that this summer, the All Blacks aped this move, the beauty that resulted in Wales' winning try in the second test through Josh Adams. However, they don't do the work. While Wales went through countless phases to drag the Boks in, then launched off a forward in order to tie in all but 2 players, as well as having the centres running these lines, and put Thomas Williams at 10 to free their crispest passer to throw the most difficult ball, the All Blacks run off first phase, figuring the forwards are drawn in anyway, but where Wales forced them to run aggressive straight lines in order to hit Navidi, against New Zealand they can drift sideways, they're not bothered, they're not drawn in, meaning the centres can drift too and allow Willems to just make the decision to fly in on Jordan because his teammates are going to catch up with any other option. A luxury Haaland here was not allowed, forced to choose between Williams and Adams. However, where Wales put the tricky pass on Anscombe, the fly half, New Zealand have 2 fly halves on the pitch and give it to neither of them. Mo'unga gives the easy ball and Barrett is a dummy runner in an unrealistic position to catch the ball. He's kind of nothing here, meaning David Avili has to thread the ball. And it's in the air way too long, meaning Jordan, who is too flat, unlike Adams who comes onto it from proper depth, takes it above his head, standing still, turning a genius move when deployed by Wales into a hospital ball. He spills it, Bodie recovers it, but New Zealand then go backwards repeatedly, unable to improvise a way around the Springbok D, until eventually Lekanuam himself gets over the ball and wins a turnover, which Pollard promptly slots over for 3 points. There's a lot of really worrying things about this All Black coaching setup, but their inability to recognise why a good attack was a good attack instead of just a good pass is kind of frightening. And yet, the criticism seems to be getting to them. There's no small amount of accusations in New Zealand that the Island Series saw them kick too much, and so despite their kicking game being one of the only things I'd ostensibly say went well for them in that third test, they seem to just abandon it, running their ball no matter what, no matter how poorly set up they were to do so, and it just left them victims of the ever-excellent Springbok kick chase. This is a pretty great box kick by Hendrickson, but an absolutely brilliant chase by Mapimpi, who wins the aerial battle and lets Smith take it in. Disorganised by this whole deal, the All Blacks clump in midfield and Pollard spots this instantly. With team numbers short, Barrett has come into the main line, so Pollard hangs it wide. 3 Boks chase but only 2 All Blacks, who are both turning backwards. Ioane can only block one of the chasers, and it leads to a wild bounce that almost goes into Khaleesi's hands, but instead, under enormous pressure, Ioane throws it to the spiciest plum in town. The Springboks now have it in the 22. They reset, they keep playing for a while, they keep applying the pressure whilst Pollard just assesses things. The moment the All Blacks get one dominant shot, the moment they get on top for one phase, Pollard goes, yep, now please, this is it. Slots back into the pocket, takes a drop goal. Beautifully clinical stuff. and it's not dissimilar to the try by Curtly Aronson. The passage begins with an old Razzie favourite, this 11 play as it's known. The team crash in field off a scrum, then work back to the area where the scrum was set. It's often a great way of catching opposition forwards, offside, or if they're lazy, just getting up from the set piece, finding a few gaps. We saw it in a try created against Australia as Peter Steph Toy steamed through here a few years ago. It doesn't do much initially, but it sucks New Zealand in really well. They clamour around this zone, the pack not spreading out properly because of the Boks 1-2 punch. And so, Caleb Clark comes up flat, he joins the main line because the rest of it is condensed. As the last carry is made, Handré Pollard takes one glance at Clark and points up. This ball is going in the air because he's in a terrible position to regather it. And once it goes up, watch how wide Aronson comes in from. He's right out on the touchline, meaning he can easily avoid his opposite man. He's not kind of wrestling past him and just get incredibly high, knocking the ball back towards terra firma. Meanwhile, Lukhanyo makes a decision. Instead of simply tracking the ball, trying to get where it might bounce, he notices this space. He knows the ball could bounce anywhere, but if it bounces here, and he stands here, he's through, it's a try. This is a calculated risk, a changing of positioning that would give him 70-30 odds of retaining the ball, but instead he drops his odds to about 50-50, but increased the chance of scoring a try from 0 to 50. The ball lands in his arms, and he has the briefest glance at the briefest glance at Aronson, and then magic. His reaction times are insane, his skills are unbelievable, and also a note for his patience, right? He has a chance to throw the ball at the back here, but he resists it and instead waits until he hits the ground to make the pass more accurate and sympathetic for Aronson to run onto. It's just, whew. Lukhanyo, man, what a player. His winger does the job and finishes the score. All three players involved here doing their job just going above and beyond. It's phenomenal attacking rugby. It's just brilliant, technical, thoughtful, intelligent, really, really great rugby. Time after time, the All Blacks presented the slightest problem in positioning, and South Africa rung up the tail and told them that would cost them 30 metres, 3 points, and a healthy dose of humiliation. Please. Barrett clears here from a free kick. Despite having all the time in the world to organise a chase on their own terms, look at how much space there is behind the New Zealand line. There's no organisation, and with Will Jordan leading the charge, no one has filled the 30 metres of prime real estate behind, and Jordan has to double back himself, and then gets beaten in the air by Mapimpi, but frankly he's done well to just get there. Mapimpi's coming in a straight line and can get a huge leap and beat him easily. Really smart by Phillimster, and incredible athleticism by Mapimpi. The Boks regather the ball, and first phase, Sam Gain, having probably the worst game of his career, flops over the breakdown and gives a simple 3 points away for Handré Pollard. If we say rugby has 10 component parts, right, an arbitrary figure I just made up, New Zealand are functional in all 10, but 9 of them have cracks, things that can be exploited. Where Ireland really targeted 2 or 3 until they completely exploded, the Boks applied pressure on every single area of the game, and the result was New Zealand folding into a sloppy, inarticulate mess. Whilst for most of the game the margin might not have been that big on the scoreboard, the Springboks were playing in such a way you knew the only way New Zealand would score any points was going to be freak breakaway moments or mistakes by the Boks. The South African kicking game was so on top New Zealand weren't going to nab much territory. Their defence so glorious it wasn't going to be broken down. Their pack was so on top the chance of getting the ball in the first place honestly not that high. Hence why Beauden Barrett knew going for high risk intercepts like this was not just justified but necessary. It starts with a phenomenal maul by the Boks. 4 Bok big men splinter their Kiwi equivalents off and leave marks and mates against no one. George Bauer just chilling on the side here. This maul has made so much ground it's essentially a line break. Both sides are set to scramble and Diolande comes in at first receiver. But Beauden spots this tiniest detail, right? As Hendrickson prepares to pass, Ibn Etzebeth doesn't put his hands up to catch. So he knows the ball is going to DDA. That's the only guy he needs to worry about. And hence he knows exactly where the pass is going. So he shoots in and almost nicks it, but does successfully kill the momentum in the attack. This is going to get quite boring to talk about over the course of this year, right? But Beauden Barrett is currently playing unbelievably well, and I've scarcely pitied a player more. He's so sharp, but the players around him just aren't on his level. Here, he's in the boot behind Bauer, but Hendrickson shoots up to hit him, so knowing he won't be in position next phase, Barrett redraws his plan. If he can skip on Etzebeth's outside, it's an easy offload to put Havili through, but his centre gets his line completely wrong, and instead Beauden has to keep hold of the ball, and then somehow still skips out, tackles, beats men and makes ground. Bloody Beauden Barrett things. Or this attack, right? He spots spots Diego stumble slightly and counts on him overshooting to make up for it and can put Ioane into a tiny gap next to him, and then as the player's resetting, he turns to Worldy Surveyor and tells him to throw the same inside ball again, which puts Toiyaku through a big hole. Bowden then throws a lovely flat ball to Talval, and I really wish we had a wide shot this here because I think he's clearly setting up something for the next phase. It's extremely reminiscent of a pattern Franz often run with Untermack, where he drops the ball off to a forward and then floats around the corner, kind of condensing the defence so that the backs can then play the next phase as they all stretch out and he slots in at 10. Bowden has spotted an attacker phase early and wants to condense the defence, but you can never count out the Springboks. You can never kind of go 2 phases in advance of the Boks because they're going to smash you backwards or do something like this. Lacan Yuan makes a beautiful subtle nudge on Bauer and he can't get over the breakdown in time. Kane is also too late. Malcolm Marks is over the ball for his 822nd turnover of the game before Bowden can get his idea going. Watching Bowden Barrett in the current All Blacks team is like seeing Anthony Hopkins star in a school nativity play. They're all theoretically doing the same thing, but only one of them actually looks like they put a lifetime of effort into it. Physically, the All Blacks are a mess, but I do think it's enormously accentuated by how good the Springboks are at exploiting problems. Physically, they were enormous as always, and it was matched by their ambition. Pollard misses touch here, but at 7-0 12 minutes in, I think this is really worth going for broke. I think it's quite a smart decision. The Springboks and more tries are pallier than Malcolm Marks and redistributing possession amongst the masses, and if they nabbed another one here, that's the game good as gone for the All Blacks. It's emotionally devastating to be 14-0 down after as many minutes. They just bring the same aggression that they apply to the scrum or line out or anything to every aspect of their game. And as such, I want words as well for the chasing of Kurtley Aronson, who was exceptional all game until he wasn't. But moments like this, slaloming through the defenders so no one can obstruct him from the chase, often go unnoticed but are outstanding wing work. And here he does the opposite. It's a great block on Caleb Clark, meaning he can't get anywhere near Pollard until he's already taken the ball. The Boks set up and Aronson then sets up to chase again, and it's another blinder. Instead of properly contesting, he just kind of waves an arm in Barrett's eye line and it throws him off. Khaleesi then out-hustles his opposite number on the ground to regather it, and the All Blacks are at 6s and 7s just like the world ranking by the end of the year. Pollard is screaming for it, but once it gets wide, the Boks are kind of shapeless. This is normally where Villy the Roo comes in. He normally organises the shape whilst Pollard's dictating the play, making the decision to go wide. But once the ball gets to Willemse, he does phenomenally well. He kind of shows, what he brings instead of Leroux, and it grants Diolande space to attack. Look, I think Diolande kind of shits the bed here, but we're still looking at an enormous territorial gain and an opportunity created through this. And I do think that's an interesting point, because this was not a perfect performance by the Boks, outstanding though it was. If we look at the same arbitrary 10 components that I just made up, for the Springboks, 6 of them are probably flawless. 2 are functional, and 2 of them kind of not up and running. The Boks aren't that great at playing off turnover, and their attack is very much in the you know what's coming but try and stop it camp. There's little subtlety or surprise to it. And to the All Blacks' credit, their defence was really solid on Saturday, easily the best it's been all year. Neither of those things are problems per se, and if you're Razzie or Jacques, it's not a big deal that your 2 weakest areas are things an opposition can't target, but building towards the World Cup and this game against France in the autumn, they may be areas worth shoring up, worth really trying to work on. I'm trying to say this without just going, just pick Villy the Roo, but it would solve the. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really hurt. And it did work here. And there's not much to say about this try except to zoom in on Shannon Frizzell and say, lol. And frankly, there's not that much more to say about the Springboks in general, except from everyone else's perspective, yikes. They dismantled, depressed, slaughtered, popped, pickled the All Blacks, and there's frankly still a whole chunk of room for them to get better as they head into Test 2 and the rest of the Rugby Championship. And for New Zealand, well, they've got, let's call it even more room to improve, but also significantly more reason to, as they try to prevent the word I select next week in the title when describing how the Springboks could beat them then being end. Thank you for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. There's loads more around the channel if you want to go and have a poke around. And obviously we'll be back next week for the next game, the second test. We'll see how things go. There's games on the summer. There's loads more stuff around. There's a podcast as well looking at the 97 Rugby World Cup called the Rugby World Cup Retrospective. And we are this weekend on Friday looking at the quarter-final between France and Fiji, which was a lot of fun. Very, very silly old game if you want to go and listen to that. There's loads more stuff floating around, and I'll see you very soon for more rugby.
I'm a bear, I'm not a bunny, so here's some stuff that's really funny. Ah, waka waka!